Okay, the purpose of today's event is to bring forward the horrendous events that took place on January 6, 2021. That's a day that will forever be a stain on America's history. The day a violent attack took place on our Capitol in an effort to overturn a free and fair election. Right-wing militants and several elected officials and the President of the United States himself conspired against our country, our democracy, and our freedom as voters to choose their leaders that represent us so that we can have a government of, by, and for the people.
As I watched this play out on TV, I was struck, and I think many of us were here in Michigan, that it didn't surprise me. Because we had a trial run here in Michigan on April 30th in our state capitol of people who came into the Senate building, people who came into the gallery fully armed and threatened us. There was a photo that went viral that many of you, I'm sure, have seen of 4 men heavily armed in the gallery. I was right below that photo on the floor. They taunted us. They were trying to scare us. It was intentional intimidation and threats, and it wasn't like they broke into the Capitol. They were invited in. They were invited in by Senate Majority Leader Mike Shirkey, who brought them into the gallery, and who is on record for taking meetings with these same people who want to overthrow our democracy. These are people who openly threatened to kidnap and kill the governor, to take people in our capital hostage, to carry out public execution. So we have seen this in Michigan long before it happened on January 6th. So this is a new year. We are here. We're not going anywhere.
Yes!
We are going to fight like hell to protect our country, to protect democracy, to be the real patriots, not people who cover themselves in guns, who think that you can take the country by fear-mongering instead of doing it the hard way, which is getting out on doors, talking to people, and asking for their votes. So that's what we're going to do every single day from now through November to make sure that at every single level, from school board to poll workers to election officials to state house, state senate, and on up, are people who give a shit about this country and aren't going to let it burn to the ground.
Are we a little cold?
Oh, yeah!
Do we care? Are we on fire for democracy? All right, look. 1 year ago today, I was trying to do my job. I went to the office early. There was a knock on the door. I should say a banging on the door. The Capitol Police came. They evacuated us. I don't really want to focus on that day. What I want to say to you is this. I was wrong about something on January 6th. Obviously, America would wake up and see that Trumpism was a threat to democracy itself, and the Republican Party would turn a new page. And let's just listen to it for a minute. Has the Republican Party turned a new page?
No! Not at all.
147 of my colleagues in the House walked back, just as I did, into our sacred chamber of democracy, the House chamber, walking across broken glass, walking across freshly swabbed up blood. Went back into that chamber, and despite what had happened, voted to nullify the votes of millions of their fellow Americans. And I'm telling you, as much as everybody who went in that Capitol and desecrated it and committed violence should be prosecuted, as far as I'm concerned, the people like me who swore an oath to the Constitution to uphold it and then went and tried to end our 232-year experiment with democracy are as much insurrectionists as anybody who went and ransacked that Capitol. So my little part of it as a congressman is to pass federal legislation to make sure that voting rights are protected. You all would have been happy if the Senate followed suit and passed H.R. 1, the People Act. You would have been happy if they just up and passed the John Lewis Voting Rights Act. You would have been happy if they just passed the Protecting Democracy Act. So here's what I got to tell you all. The only way we are going to save our democracy is through us having feet on the street.
Right.
Don't stop writing letters. Don't stop sending emails to all of us, state and federal legislators. Don't stop making phone calls. My message to you 1 year later is not. It's not. Wasn't that horrible? Isn't that bad? We've got to remember it. My message to you 1 year later, Bruce, is that our democracy is hanging by a thread, and it's up to all of us patriotic Americans to save it.
And a year ago, there was an attack on our democracy, right? An attack to steal not only our votes, but our voices. And that attack was not only on that day, because right now, laws have been legislated, laws are being legislated to codify the theft of our voices. And so while we acknowledge what happened a year ago, we must also pledge to do all that's in our power to make sure it never happens again.
This is really pretty simple. It's not about whether people are Democrats or Republicans. It's not even about whether people voted for Joe Biden or Donald Trump. It's about the simple fact that if you love America, you believe in and support our democracy all the time, not just when your side wins. And it's about the simple fact that if you love America, you support the rule of law all the time, not just when you agree with the law. It's about the fact that using violence against police officers is wrong all the time, not just if the police are standing between you and something that you want to disrupt. And finally, it's about the simple principle that if you love America, you put the interests of our country before the cult of personality of a demagogue. Let's always remember that no matter where one is on the political spectrum, using violence to try to overthrow a democratically elected government is wrong. We're not going to stand for it or tolerate it, and let's make sure that this year and every year we vote for and elect candidates who support our democracy and love America. Thank you.
A democracy works when everyone has the right to vote, and that right has the ability to be easily exercised. I recently organized a voter registration drive at Rochester High School. But registering to vote and having that right means very little if we aren't able to freely exercise that right. This year, we need our representatives in Congress and the Senate to pass necessary legislation to protect the right to vote and make sure our voices are heard in all of our elections.
We're not going to give up until we pass voting rights legislation and our democracy is safe.
This is what democracy looks like! This is what democracy looks like! Voting rights are civil rights! 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 This is what democracy looks like! This is what democracy looks like!